welcome back to the AOS crowd, your competitive Warhammer Age of Sigmar hobby central. My name is Quin, and today I am joined by Big Phil!
Hi everyone, it's been a while, but good to be back and looking forward to getting more content out in the future.
Yes, this is the first non-solo video we've had on the channel for a while, so we'll be doing something special today. We will be looking at Age of Sigmar Worlds 2024 Amsterdam. A little bit of an event preview! Whee!
Yeah, the last big send-off of AOS 4, AOS 3 even, before AOS 4 comes out next month.
Yes.
So yeah, it's going to be quite an exciting show. I think we're just going to go for a bit of a overview of what are the main factions that have been taken, why we think they've been taken, and maybe look at a few cool lists that are a bit off meta, a bit different, and then talk about our predictions for the World Team Championships. So, yeah.
So for those that are not in the picture, this is a sort of little bit of a reference from when this video is recorded. This video is recorded 4 days before we're leaving for Amsterdam. It's literally next week. And because next week is also the pre-order date for Age of Sigmar 4, it literally is the last possible send-off we can give AOS 3 in a big manner. So, yeah. Phil, why don't you start us off with the first sort of armies?
Yeah, so the first army we're going to look at has been taken by 24 of the 26 teams. One of those teams that didn't take it was Team England, and that is Khorne. Yeah. So why do we think Khorne has got such a good representation across the event? Well, statistically, it has a really good track record across singles. It's a really hard army to play against, score against, and beat reliably. You never really see Khorne getting 20-0'd. So it's a really good army to go into certain matchups, either attacking into matchups that require lots of spell casting, like Nagash, Seraphon, Lumineth, etc. But then it can also defend in really strong scenarios that are fight in the middle. So that's what this whole edition has been about, is securing a central point on the board, fighting around it. The other benefit to Khorne is they're never out the game because of the blood ties mechanic. So they have strong ways of either messing up your turns with Murderlust, auto unbinding spells, and then if they do need more bodies, they've got a great summoning table as well. The majority of the lists, I think, are boom thirsters.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of a roulette machine. How many sixes can you roll, and then how many units can you blow up within 8 inches?
Yeah.
So
one of our guests, Toby, who we've seen in the club championship video, as well as our team, are taking a Boomthirster list, so we're pretty stoked. And I'm very excited to see how the list performs, since I usually play Khorne as well. So yeah. And of course the strength, as Phil mentioned, it's a gigantic toolbox of different units, different mechanics that can mess up the game for your opponent. It's a super tricky list to fully master, but I believe that, I think Phil said this in a video way back, that Khorne in the right player's hands is the most powerful army in the game. And I think that still holds up to a massive extent. Good Khorne players are nearly unbeatable. And that's why I think we are seeing so much of it at Worlds. Not only because the battletome last year was so great, but because they've been somewhat unaffected by most of the nerfs that have come to pass over the last 8-9 months. Just a couple of points increases here and there, and not necessarily a lot of rules changes. And in turn, they basically gained a free battle tactic as well. So it's good. It's really, really good.
Yeah, we'll do a deep dive of Team England post-event rather than give away anything that we've kind of analysed in the lead up to Worlds as to why we've not taken it. So post-event we'll do a show about Team England and why we took certain lists and why we left certain lists to one side. I'm under a Luke Morton in the bin NDA, so I won't be diverging any more information other than that.
I wish I could, but I will respect that too much. But yeah, as Phil mentioned, we'll be looking into a couple of teams post-event. We'll try to get math on for Team Wales. And of course, I'll be probably doing a Team Austria reflection, maybe even inviting one of our players or our captain on to just chat about it. But yeah, since we're talking about a strong scoring list, why not talk about Gargants, the next item on our sort of checklist to get to. In essence, 24 out of 26 nations have also taken Gargants. It's not necessarily the same nations. Team England's got Gargants in their roster, but yeah. Why Gargants? In essence, we know that Gargants count more on objectives, and they are just huge pools of hit points that you need to get through. It's just standing on circles and waiting to die, basically, while also posing a huge threat in melee. These guys can dish out so much damage in the correct turns, and with their high mobility and versatile toolkit as well, the 3d6 charge flyover rampage, and the different sort of abilities they gain through King Broad Stomp just makes them really, really tough to deal with. But nonetheless, there are a couple of outliers. There's only one list that hasn't brought King Broad, but they've taken Kragnos, and it's not King Broad Stomp, and that's one of the lists we'll get to in our sort of lists preview, so to speak. But yeah, the recent changes in points in the battlescroll really gave Gargants the edge and the development that they needed. With King Broad Stomp, they got the battle tactics that they're required to begin scoring well, and now with the reduced points, they're just very, very powerful.
Yeah, the other big change with Broad coming back on the scene is it kind of makes them feel like Gargants when they first came out. So you can get all three of your megas on a ward save.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can take Amulet of Destiny on one, you can do the prayer for the other one from Broad, and then Broad normally will get babied by either the other two big lads or one of the man crushers, so that he gets a 5-up ward as long as he's within 3.
Mm-hmm.
And like Quin's alluded to, the damage output's insane. Like the ability to remove terrain and change the whole map from the team's perspective when defenders at Worlds get to choose between an alpha and beta map pack, so you're choosing a terrain map that will benefit your army more so than the other one, and Gargants just don't care about it because they're just going to be like, cool, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to lob it at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does quite a lot of damage. It's like Rend 3, damage D3 plus 3, D6 shots. So if you spike, it's gonna lift units.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like counting as 20 on an objective, it's again when you're fighting in the middle and you've got 3 big lads counting as 60, you're gonna struggle to find the bodies to reliably take that back off.
Yeah. And on certain battle plans that just insanely skews like points matchups. For an example of this would be Towers in the Tundra, where you're just fighting over two objectives, not even mentioning the ability to just remove a wizard tower from your opponent's deployment zone, or geomantic pulse for that matter, something you have to fight over that gives you huge amounts of points, just being taken by a singular Gargant and held by a singular Gargant for turns on end. It's really, really powerful, and something that I think the meta is only slowly adapting to. But
Yeah, no, completely agree.
strong scoring brings us actually to Daughters of Khaine. I'm not quite sure how often it's represented, but it's quite often. I didn't really expect this, to be honest. Why Daughters of Khaine then?
So most of them are going to be a 1-drop, which is going to be quite big in this edition as well. I feel like at the moment you're either a Battle Reg, 3-drop, or all the drops. Daughters of Khaine inherently have really good battle tactics. So they're going to start off the game by scoring 10 the majority of the time, unless you can get around and table them. But then you're just giving them their grand strat, because they've got one of the easiest grand strats in the game of fight or die. The other benefit to them is they're really good at playing all types of scenarios. So lots of the lists at Worlds are, you guessed it, Marathi and the Bow Snakes. So quite a lot of them are in Calibron. So you'll be seeing Bow Snakes teleporting all around the board. And then looking to zone people off with Marathi. So Marathi enables you to do the whole fight in the middle with Mind Razor, knowing she's going to hang around for a little bit. And then you've got that 60 shots a turn with the Bow Snake shooting in the hero phase, and then the preceding shooting phase. So it's just, again, comes back to Khorne. It's a bit of a toolbox. You play in all phases of the game. You've got really strong battle tactics, and you're really good at playing a lot of scenarios that a lot of these fight in the middle armies don't want to play as much. So your Nexus Collapse, for example, you're a 1-drop, you've got really good tactics. Fountains, the ability to get around the board really quickly within Calibron with Shadow Stalkers, Heart Renders, the command ability. Same for limited resources.
Yeah.
So my perception is a lot of these Daughters of Khaine players are going to want to be playing the spread missions, the ones where it's really important to be a 1-drop, and win that roll off. So really good in the pairings. It's really good from a team dynamic as well, because it doesn't take any of the like universal spell lore, universal artifacts. It's just got really good stuff within their own book, like 4-up rally. They'll either take Arcane Tome if needs be, or the one where you turn off Inspiring Presence.
Yeah, the Crown of Woes. It's super self-reliant. Like, a good player will always exit a match with at least 9, if not 10 points. And from a team's perspective, just throwing that matchup into, let's say, an army that relies on high scoring, that has the same like principle of completing all the tactics and fighting in the middle, will just struggle because they can't maximize their own points potential just because it's such a roadblock, because they themselves score big. And that is something that's really, really interesting from a team's dynamic. Because for us personally in Austria, we were discussing whether Daughters would be seen a lot at Worlds. And we sort of agreed that they might be an issue in the run-up to the event. And since so many people are taking them, we realized that there are a couple of weaknesses to the army and to the playstyle that Daughters really thrive in is that if turn order doesn't go their way, they can easily lose 1 or 2 hammer units or 1 or 2 key units for battle tactics. Because for Daughters players, if you have so many battle tactics to score, the sequencing of those tactics is very, very important, because taking and intimidate the invaders at the wrong time might mean that you can't really score a surround and destroy later. And so on and so forth. It's just a lot of like interconnected pieces that need to fit together, where the army really, and the player, of course, really need to work and think ahead and be critical. Now coming to another army that doesn't necessarily require that much critical thinking is back to good old stand on circles and don't die. Nurgle. In a wonderful fashion, Nurgle has returned to the top of the represented armies at Worlds, and mostly in the form of big lads and a couple plate bearers. But yeah, in essence, I think Nurgle is a great army for team events because it just plays specific battle plans super duper well. Of course, as a summoning army, or as an army with the ability to summon anything, really, it has a lot of staying power. And that's not even counting in the 5-up ward that every single unit gets. It's just there. And you will never really be able to table a Nurgle army. It just plays 5 solid turns and it scores, no matter the matchup. There are a couple of skews, of course, but that's something you can avoid in pairings. And yeah, as Phil already mentioned with Daughters of Khaine, the lists that we've seen so far at Worlds, they don't require like a lot of the generic stuff. Most of the armies are a 3-drop, I believe, or a 4-drop. And yeah, it doesn't require an arcane tome. It doesn't require any of the artifacts. It's just really, really self-reliable. And yeah, in terms of pairings, of course, Nurgle is a great defender list. But since not everyone really knows what defender, attacker, that system sort of means, Phil, could you give us like a short catch-up on what these terms mean?
So a defender is someone that you will place down on a certain scenario in order to guarantee playing said scenario, whereas an attacker will be a combination of armies that are happy to play all sorts of scenarios and will go down into most armies to defend. So a lot of the time, for example, you'll have Nurgle defending, let's just say Pulse for argument's sake. It likes objectives outside its territory. It's got a battle tactic for that. So if it was a choice between Pulse or Every Step is Forward, they're going to choose Pulse. It opens up more opportunities to score. It's also fighting in the middle. And then your opponent will attack into that with 2 matchups that they feel they can beat Nurgle with. So, for example, I'll just use 2 armies we spoke about earlier, Gargants and Khorne. So again, 2 armies that don't mind fighting in the middle. Do they have the tools to take off Nurgle? You don't know. Or do we know? And then the Nurgle player will pick one of those 2 attackers that it feels has its most favourable matchup. Alternatively, from a team perspective, you could remove the worst matchup for the rest of the team out of the pairings process, knowing that Nurgle is still going to get a solid result, even if it were to lose small. You have the ability to remove a problem army from the rest of the matrix. The other great thing about Nurgle, not so much as a defender, is similarly to Khorne, it's really good at disrupting what you're trying to do with Glotkin's countercharge.
Yep.
So the ability to play effectively in your opponent's turn, charge people, tag ends, really minimize the damage that you're taking back. And with the 5-up ward, like, it's so swingy in order to just kill 10 plague bearers when you fight them with everything anyway. So let alone fighting them when you've just tagged the end of like 6 of Arangard or whatever, and then only 2 of Arangard are fighting you. Do they burn their fight twice to try and get through the unit? It causes all these sorts of problems for your opponent in using your resources in order to kill chaff effectively. The other benefit to Nurgle is being the summoning army that it is. As you alluded to, it doesn't take away anything, but it has the ability to summon like Blizzard Wizards if needs be, and just add all these extra pieces to the list. Like what you'll end up finding is a slot fatigue will get summoned like turn 1 basically every game to give that aura of -1 to hit. And then, like say, just having the option to put a Blizzard Wizard on the table for spending your summoning points is fantastic.
Yeah, and something that also feeds into this is the summoning also plays into their survivability a lot. As you said, the -1 to hit bubble just makes them obnoxious to deal with in any scenario. And more often than not, you're better off just avoiding Plague Bearers and the Glodkin and just playing on objectives in any case.
Yeah. Speaking of Blizzard Wizards, should we go to Wizards?
Wizards.
That bloody toad sits in that stupid chair.
I hate that toad so much.
Seraphon. It kind of feels like they've had the year of the Lumineth. They've been hit by nerf after nerf after nerf.
Yep.
Yet we still see quite a few lists at teams this year. However, from my perspective, they need an incredible pilot now in order to really get the full force out of it. You either have to sacrifice your heroes, which stop you getting your CCP points in order to have the bodies, or you're sacrificing the bodies to have your heroes that make Kroak the powerhouse that he is. And part of Kroak and Nagash also, you roll that one miscast early on in your hero phase, and your whole turn ends up turning into a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
That being said, they still have the ability to, on a double turn, lift armies.
Yeah.
The spell casting is incredible. The denial in the magic phase is also obscene with Kroak. The fact that they can summon, do different abilities like 5-up ward, E6 mortal wounds, all from getting these points.
Yeah.
Gives them plenty of options. So I still think they're good. Are they gonna be one of the big bullies this year? I don't think so.
Or one list maybe, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. The one list that is very different to all the others. So we won't talk about the list too much because that will get picked up on a later episode. But of all the Seraphon lists there, there's only one that is Kotal's Claw. I don't know what hero is playing that, but
we do love our dinosaurs.
They bloody love an Agrodon.
Yeah.
But
that's just how the cookie crumbles, you know. As we've talked about before, as you mentioned, it needs ultra babying in the pairings. There are armies out there that will just ignore 90% of the damage that Seraphon does. Just talking about Khorne, talking about Gargants. They don't care about D3 mortal wounds. they'll just cross the board with their spell ignore and their 35 wounds, and they'll just smash you off the board within 2 turns. If worst comes to worst, maybe in 1 turn, basically. At the same time, we've seen a lot of wizard finders at the tournament as well. So there are armies that don't usually have access to a spell ignore, running around with a 5-up spell ignore and extra attacks against wizards, something that hurts Seraphon so much already. And more often than not, primal dice are a thing now. Primal dice enable Seraphon to do incredible things, but it's also a risk, because even if you've got that +4 to cast and you're only rolling a 2d6, your opponent can always just throw in that extra primal dice if he feels like he needs to stop that one battle tactic to stop you from annihilating a single unit with spell damage. That's just basically another way that Seraphon got hit in recent times. But yeah, something that Phil and I have sort of spoken about a little bit beforehand, but something we disagree on, is that, in my humble opinion, Seraphon aren't necessarily a list that can defend well. Mostly because there are matchups out there where they'll just put down Khorne and IDK or something else that'll just delete Seraphon off the table. So it needs to be played more aggressively and more as an attacker rather than a defender. But I have a different view on that than Phil.
I think it would depend on your opponent's team composition, right, and how early on you defended them. I agree, you can't put them down as first defender, even in like Power Flux, if someone's got Nagash or Khorne, because Nagash will just completely hamper any form of the Seraphon player's ability to score points. So yeah, I agree. They do need protecting from a defensive point of view, but once you start removing their issues from the ability to get attacked into, then they are an option to defend with. But also don't disagree attacking with them when they've got good matchups that you can play.
And something fun to mention, there's only one Seraphon list that doesn't play Croak, so I will take that credit with a proud smile on my face.
I think everyone will buy you a drink. See, you've not got Crocus on.
Yeah, that's the first thing. That was the only intent. I'm only going to be drinking at Worlds this year. But speaking of drunkenly staggering across a battlefield at high velocities, Gitz.
Yeah, a lot fewer this year than last year. They were the big bad with KO last year.
Mm-hmm. Super good scoring, of course, but
yeah, great recursion.
Yeah,
great output.
Yeah, a lot of tools as well, like buffing Squig Herd in the direction that you need to, mortal wounds, higher end, anything of the sorts.
Yeah, -1 to hit, 5-up ward.
Yeah,
fight on death. Yeah, it surprises me a little bit that, again, Gitz as a toolbox hasn't been selected by more players, especially in the current meta of you need to be good at fighting. Lots of armies have really good recursion, and Gitz lean into both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
However, with the latest points and everything, is it one toy too few now? So you've now got to choose between getting those extra 5 bounders in, or do you go for the Snufflers or the Gobberpalooza? And personally, I'd never leave home without the Palooza. So you're losing that one piece that could almost make all the difference. So, yeah, I'm I'm still very surprised though. Like Squig Herd have the ability just to lift anything in the game.
Yeah.
And that chart goes off. So yeah, little bit surprised. Again, great battle tactics. Reasonably okay grand strat with defending your shrine. Plays these fight in the middle objectives really well as well. So,
but I think there are a couple of changes to last year that make all the difference, so to speak. More often than not, Hoarfrost, for example, that'll make Squigs ultra powerful, is better used somewhere else in an army. Yeah. Maybe, can't think of anything right now. A Skaven, stuff like that. Loads and loads of attacks at high rend, or just to, for God's sake, buff the poor Squigs that they hit something. Because they can get the rend from somewhere else. But
I also think there's loads of negatives to hit now.
Yeah.
Well, which really hurts Squig Herd.
Yeah, that too. And, of course, the change of season, since Lookout Sir is now the old, or an evolved version of what we had last season, and the change in battle tactics that sort of aren't necessarily auto-completes still for Gitz, I think has seen them drop off the radar for most competitive players. It's still ultra strong, and in the right hands, it'll just body anybody. An example that comes to mind is Yoren, who's been playing Gitz for the past year, I think, just bodying people at tournaments.
Well. He's got those 10 fanatics that are just going to pop out and decimate whatever they go into. Yeah, his list is a really aggro castle. It's got the spore splatters for +1 attack. The fanatics, you're going to be looking at like D6 +1 attacks, Rend 3.
Yeah,
they're going to be absolutely obscene. So people need to be wary of the output that is within that list.
Yeah. And that's, of course, something that the army composition also plays a role in. In our roster as it stands, I wouldn't necessarily see an army that Gitz would reliably replace, so to speak. And I wouldn't necessarily see a spot for it compared to, let's say, Gargants or Khorne or Lumineth, for example, even though we're the only ones running techless.
Yeah, I think you also need the player for it. It's quite a unique army in the aspect that it does have the recursion. It's got the good output, but if played badly, there's a lot in the game now that will take it off.
Yeah.
So I think Yoren with over 12 months experience on Gitz, you're probably looking at more like 18 months, because he would have been Gitz long before Worlds last year. He took them to the World Championships in Atlanta as well, did really well. So I'm sure Yoren is going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with on Gitz.
Yeah, definitely. And since we've been talking about a couple of lists already, we've got a few interesting ones picked out that we want to sort of take a closer look at, and I'll make sure to display them adequately here in the middle.
I'll leave you to run through this obscene Skaven list, because I have no idea what it does other than grind up me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't play Skaven either, so this is just 100% guesswork. So this is the list by Ryan Byrne from Team UN, one of the new teams this year. And it is a basic grab bag of Scryer acolytes.
It's an obscene amount of acolytes, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 acolytes.
40 Scryer acolytes in a single list. accompanied by Thanquol, a warlock engineer, and another engineer, 40 clan rats, and then just the rest is 20 gutter runners and 40 scryer acolytes.
And
then
some warblocking cannons.
Yeah.
I mean, this Bread is an absolute lunatic anyway, so he's going to have an absolutely amazing time, and I'd like to watch the turn 2 priority role in every single game that he plays. Thankful is actually going to be a massive issue for people as well. In the meta at the moment, where you're either an elite army or you're a horde army, Thankful is going to blow away people's units like there are no tomorrow with those 4 projectors.
Yeah, just thinking about, I don't know, 20 Beast Flayers and 20 Beast Flayers and 20 Crypt Guard, a couple more units that have a lot of models. You're going to be removing those like no tomorrow if you're at risk if you're playing Horde when you see Thankful on the table. Thankfully, he's not as mobile as he once was with the Laukon and Skitterleap. So, thank God.
Yes.
But I'm not quite sure what this army does. The way it seems to work, from my understanding, is it runs at the enemy, turn 1. It's a 2-drop, so it'll outdrop maybe 50% of the armies, then another 25% it's a roll-off for prio, and the rest of the 25%, The army just seems to want to run at the opponent and do as much damage as possible with D3 damage and mortal wounds from the gutter runners and the warp lightning cannons, Thankful being disruptive with high casting bonuses and unbind bonuses, and just being an obnoxious army that plays really well since it's really, really mobile. The Gnawholes, Skitterleap on Thankful, as well as the high base movement on all of these units, means that he'll just run him up the board. And that is dangerous. It's 140 wounds as well. And that's no joke to get through in any sense of the matter. Like, yeah, it is rough. And I'm really excited to see it perform well, because I think it will. A lot of people they don't know about this. They don't anticipate what this army does, because it's such a grab bag of tricks as well. It'll just be obnoxious in pairings, because either you avoid it or you take it and risk that you just maybe you've got a bad matchup.
Yeah. And speaking of high mobility, the next list I like to call How Fast Would You Like to Have a War Stomper? And that is Anthony Trentinelli from Team USA.
Yes.
So this is the one Suns list that doesn't have King Brod. Instead, he has gone the Regiment of Renown, which allows his monsters to run and charge.
Yep.
With Kragnos, that means this War Stomper is going to be able to run and then charge 3d6. So he is going to be pretty speedy. Kragnos as well, just really good at scoring the primary, buffing your own army with the 3d6 charge, and is also a bit of a beat stick. Sitting on a 2-up save. His mad spell ignore, where you just have to roll 3 dice above the casting value opposed to what the person casts it on. You then have the Regiment of Renown that enables you to do all your battle tactics, basically.
Yep.
So they're going to be off scoring the primary, doing the battle tactics that you need them to do. And then Kragnos, the War Stomper, are going to go and just try and body people. So really interesting to see how this plays on the table, as it's so different to the other Suns armies that are at Worlds.
Yeah.
Haven't seen a lot of the regiment at all recently since Brod came out.
Yeah. It's just been King Broad Stomp, Everybody ignoring the run and charge possibility. But this is the ultimate casino list. Like, 4d6 can either be 4 or it could be 24. Like, that is the potential threat range alone that you have to add on top of the War Stomper's 10 inches of movement. It's wild.
He is a speedy mofo.
And it's a 3-drop as well, like every other Gargant list. So it somewhat fits in, I guess, with the rest. But yeah, other than the fact that there's Kragnos in there and the War Stomper, it's just a lot of wounds and really, really quick.
Yeah, it is pacey.
And speed is the word of the hour, it seems, because we'll be talking about another list that I'm very, very excited about. Owen Jackson's Beasts of Chaos Darkwalker list.
Yeah.
The GOAT. Even though...
Names.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Because I feel like Owen's been playing this army since September-ish last year. It was, yeah. And he is really, really, really good at everything that army plays well into. Of course, Darkwalkers, ultra high mobility on top of the already obscene deep strike abilities of the entire army. 12 Bulgors with pairs of axes, so 50% of the models they come in contact with will be deleted and then charged again in the combat phase. With Be'lakor, insane denial possibilities, and ultra disruptive army as well. Because of the high mobility, he can get wizards in range quickly to unbind. The melee output of this army is incredible, and it's just a super good scoring army. Because you're mobile, you can evade the enemy, you've got paper-thin saves, but then again, you don't really care. The only thing that really needs to land are the Bulgors and a couple of the Raiders, and a perfectly placed Great Brace Shaman with a couple of extra spells, or the Zongor Shaman with a Blizzard can just, yeah, tip the game in his favor in an instant.
Yeah, and speaking of the well-placed Brace Shaman, it's going to be virtually impossible at times to deny Owen's Grand Strap. So he's got spellcasting Savant. So
yeah.
Inherently what he'll look to do is put his Herdstone right in the corner of the 2 board edges and allow him to leave a big enough gap where he can just about put a Brace Shaman base. That Brace Shaman's then got Ghostness.
Yep.
So he's going to be able to turn off visibility from his own piece of terrain. So unless you've got a way of getting close enough to shoot him or mortal wound him from magic or remove the piece of terrain if you're in Gargant, you're basically locking in 3 points right at the beginning of the game by knowing your shaman's going to stay alive. What does surprise me, and which is the amount of drops that Owen is. So normally, BCKs like to be quite a low drop faction in order to outdrop your opponent, give the turn away, look to set up for either a potentially really good double 1 into 2, or to allow them to control the turn order, take top of 1, control priority into 2 by winning ties, and let's have a really big double 2 into 3. So it surprises me that it's a 9-drop. However, taking a Warlord and Wizard Finders, maybe he's teched the army into being able to beat certain matchups and isn't too worried about his drop count.
That's my suspicion, at least. With the 9-drop army, you're still outdropping a lot of other armies that have high drops. An example of this would be Seraphon, for example. If they're not fit into a battle regiment or anything else really, they're either 9 or 10 drops. And from then on out, anything else, he's got reliable battle tactics that he can score if he is given the turn 1, and if the roll-off doesn't fall his way, he does play well into a double, or he plays well into, well, his second turn, basically.
Also, Be'lakor protects you from that.
Yeah.
Losing that key prio, and you can shut down that big unit that is going to cause you a real problem. The fact that he's darkwalkers as well gives him that mobility across the board. So particularly like being able to tow objectives that you can get to from board edges, etc. So I wouldn't be surprised if Owen already knows what missions he's going to attack into and defend on without even looking at the armies that he's going to potentially be playing against. I think Bok play again, a bit like Daughters of Khaine, the spread missions that no one else really wants to play, and they play it really well. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on how Owen does over the course of the weekend, and I'm expecting him to, like I said, take names, do really well. He's so well practiced on this. And I think he's going to have a really, really fruitful weekend in Amsterdam.
And a lot of recent successes as well, coming off of a great placement at Brotherhood, and then last week at, was it Carnage Teams that happened this weekend?
No, we had Leicester Teams.
Leicester Teams, I think, then.
Owen was at the Denmark team event, wasn't he? And he also...
Yes, that too.
5-0'd Bloodshed. Yeah, Owen's done incredibly well with them over the last 12 to 18 months, so will not be surprised to see him go 6-0 next week.
Can't wait. Goats.
And then our last list.
Nobody saw this one coming.
Yeah, but it just defines the American scene, right? Jacob Brandon has done incredibly all year, and even longer than that with Kruleboyz. So when we saw that he had made the roster for Team USA, we just knew Kruleboyz were going to come out in force. They do an obscene amount of mortal wounds if you can reliably get them there safely. So he's in Grilling Blades, so you can't be seen outside of 12, which helps go into that, although I don't really feel like the meta is too much about all of the shooting anymore.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Gobsprak, really good at blowing up your locusts. So having that once per game, 3d6 unbind, unbinding you over a 10, he's going to do d6 mortal wounds to you. So he's really good for that. Then you've got Scumdrek, who absolutely slaps when he gets into combat with the poison from the shamans, etc. He also does the
extra mortal wounds.
Yeah, if you're holding in 12.
And he's cheaper than he's even cheaper than the normal model for whichever reason. Like the generic one costs 20 to 30 points more. It's insane.
Yeah. Then you've got 2 Swamp Crawlers. Then you've got the Killer Boss, who, if you fail Battle Shock, only one model runs away. So, really good into that. You've then got 2 units of 10 Gut Rippers, -1 to hit if you're not a hero or a monster, 2 wounds each, 10 Hobgrots, just a standard screen, and then you've got 2 reinforced units of full boy monster killers. So this dude is going to be hunting down mega gargants like there is no tomorrow. They turn off noxious actions within 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The volume of attacks, I think they're 3 attacks each. You've then got you can put poison on them, so they're doing mortal wounds on 5s. You're then doing extra mortal wounds on 6s from Scumdrick. These guys are absolutely going to slap off monsters. But in addition to that, they're just going to slap off people's units as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're a really cool unit. As on most of the Warcry warbands now, to be perfectly honest with you, they've got really good rule sets. And then he's got 6 bolt boys that he's just going to pew you over the top with. And if he rolls 5s and 6s with those, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
yeah, I think Jacob's going to do great. His track record in the US with Kruleboyz is fantastic. And I think kudos to the guys on Team America that have allowed him to play with the army that got him selected in the first place. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I wonder if they'll do better than the Kruleboyz list that went last year.
Yeah.
Or the Team Wales. But yeah, I think it's a really cool list. I think it plays those find the middle scenarios again really well. Good tactics.
Yeah.
Grand strat.
180 wounds as well.
Yeah. And a really good spell lore. Turn off ward saves, reduce your attacks, -1 to your charges, +1 to yours. The ability to move Scumdrick with Gobsprack, so it allowed the monster to make a normal move. Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting to see how it plays on the table. And yeah, like I say, I'm sure Jacob's going to do incredibly well with it.
So yeah, those are the armies we wanted to take a quick look at, but we're not necessarily done, because looking at all of this, I don't think we mentioned last year at Worlds we had 24 nations. England placed. Where did you come again? Remind me.
Unfortunately, third last year.
That's rough. Austria placed 21st out of 24. And this year, we've got 2 new additions to the roster. We'll be joined by the Warhammer players from Russia, or as we like to refer to them, the Russian national team, and Team UN, which is a specially formed team that only is called upon when the number of total teams that would be attending Worlds is uneven. Both of which are powerhouses of of rosters, basically. Team Russia is captained by Phil Kartiev, one of the most prolific players I think I've ever seen. Huge respect for him and the squad he's assembled. The lists are interesting and diverse, something that I've not necessarily seen before, but... And on Team UN, our very close friend Seb Donnelly, and a huge slew of other big names in the Age of Sigmar community. Pedro Gordo from Portugal, for example, as a captain, also a force to be reckoned with on the table, and of course as opponents.
Yeah, and then you've got Fred and Teresa from the Tough Crowd, Marcella's coaching as well from the Tough Crowd. I believe they've got another player in for their Nurgle player.
Ryan,
The player had to drop. So, yeah, I think it's great having more teams. The bigger we can make the World Championships, the better. So let's hope for 28 teams this year. So, Quinn.
Yeah?
Predictions. In no order, what's your podium looking like?
In no order?
No order. Just give me 3 for your podium.
Austria, Serbia, Czech Republic. No. We're going to go for Team England, Team Denmark, And for a curveball, I'm gonna go for Team Italy because
Interesting.
Viva Italia, Forza Ferrari. Hey. Yeah.
I have no such curveball.
Mhm.
I am going the podium will consist of the exact same 3 teams as it did last year.
Yeah.
With, in no particular order, England, Denmark, and France. So
Mhm.
we're coming for vengeance. We've got Denmark round 1, which
Yeah.
we're all super pumped for. We've got wrongs to right this year. We nearly got capped by Denmark last year, and quite frankly, we were nowhere near good enough, and we weren't prepared. So in order for us to play them round 1, we're super excited to showcase what we actually are all about, and that we're not the same team that played against them last year. So it's a tough round. You have to beat
Yeah.
the best of the best. So really looking forward to that.
Sorry for that quick break. We had an intruder. But yeah, our round 1 for Team Austria is Serbia, the new nation that joined us last year. Will be punching it out again. Last year it was the war for the bottom tables. This year we're starting fresh, and I think we've got the edge. We've got the edge. And I'm also playing, so I think that's a huge bonus we have compared to last year, where I was coaching, as I explained in my Austria preview sort of video. But yeah, super hyped to play them. All wonderful people, but it's Worlds, so no mercy, and we're gonna smash them. And then we're gonna meet at table 1, because you capped Denmark and we capped Serbia. So
no comment. No comment. I think our round is going to be incredibly close.
I can't get anything from this guy.
Yeah. Denmark have got incredible players, incredible lists. So do England. I can't see either team running away with it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great showcase for the event that is happening round 1. And like I said, you have to beat the best to be the best. So to get them, the current world champions, at the start of the event, assuming all goes well, we can let the rest of the event know that we've come to fuck, basically.
Mm. Not to get fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's our predictions. I don't necessarily think we need to go more into the lists. They're available online on, I think, on Pun now, and I think Tom posted them, and they're on BCP and everywhere. If you look for them, you will find them. If you want to take a look for yourselves, please do so. And yeah, I guess that's everything. So Phil, why don't you just ring us out?
It's been a while since I've done this.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a reminder, there will be post-event team shows from myself for Team England, Quin from Team Austria, and Math Mallow for Team Wales. But in the meantime, remember, you get no extra points for being a cunt.